Welcome to the Go Slow to Go Fast Lifestyle Podcast. I'm Kendra Chapman, your host, and this is a space where we come together every week to breathe deeply, live more intentionally, and find the messy meaning in the middle of life. So, a mom of triplets, busy professional, caffeine lover, and a big believer in slowing down so we can show up fully. Today, I am super excited to welcome a very special guest to the show, Samantha Kane. She is a certified holistic life coach and a conscious guide who helps people align with their higher self to reclaim well-being and freedom. She uses a beautiful grounded blend of somatic healing, shadow work, and spiritual embodiment to help people break through old patterns and return to their authentic selves. Samantha is passionate about conversations that explore the real transformation, conscious living, and the path to soul liberation. It's a huge honor to have her here with us today. So, Samantha, I want to thank you for coming on the show and sitting down with me because I know we've got lots to talk about and I hope that we can unpack everything, but we're going to see where it goes too. But first, I want to get a little bit of an idea so the viewers on YouTube and the listeners on the traditional podcast so everybody can hear about how you're going slow to go fast right now.
Yes. Thank you, Kendra, for having me on your podcast. I'm so happy to be here and to speak with you because we have so much in common. And I love that about us.
Yes.
So to answer your question, how do I go slow to go fast? Well, I used to be in the hustle game big time. I was in corporate for decades, have had many jobs, never fired, but I've kind of been like a chameleon and one thing led to another and into another. And I've had so many interests and I just was this curious person. As soon as I felt that door closed, I was on to the next thing. And so I was always going fast and I was always go, go, go. And my soul kept whispering to me in every single job I ever had, every relationship I ever had, everything, all of that, jobs and relationships, some were, shorter time span and some were a longer time span.
Mm-hmm.
But regardless, there was always an inner voice in the back of my mind, in the back of my head that spoke to me and said the same message, which was, we are okay here, but we can be even better. I knew that if I worked for myself, it would be way more purposeful to my soul. I'd be more in a soul alignment. I always said I don't want to work for other people as I was working other jobs and had boss after boss after boss.
Mm-hmm.
And I've been everywhere across the board. I've done I started at the bottom of the totem pole and worked my way up, or even through managerial positions where I had people working under me as a team. Whatever it was, there was still something. There was still,
Mm-hmm.
And part of it was I needed to learn to grow and I needed to go through a lot of life lessons. And so even though the words weren't coined or framed exactly slowed down, that's what the intention behind it was. That was the purpose of the whole thing was I need to make these moves where, a lot of the moves I made were lateral moves. Some of them, I was breaking my own glass ceilings, getting better positions or going into different things or making more money or whatever it was. But I never cared too much about finances or anything. I've always had more of a spiritual side to me where I wanted something I do in life, job or not, just whatever I'm doing. I just want it to have meaning. I want it to have purpose and I want to align myself with serving others in a feel good, helpful way.
Mhm.
And so I was always looking for that space. And then finally, when I came into coaching about a decade ago and I became a mother, and my life looked so much different that I had more time to meditate, to work out, to help other people in a very personal way
Mhm.
and help clients one on one. And then now for the past couple years doing podcasts and being able to communicate in that way, it's like I'm speaking my soul language now, and it's slowed down, it's relaxed. It's finding meaning in the at a different pace. And now I feel like
Hmm.
I'm really in the story of my own book rather than helping other people write their own.
I love that. Yeah, and I think it's fascinating that you shared when we were talking before that you got a degree in education and you were going to be a classroom teacher, but it was really hard in California at the time to get a teaching job. Yeah.
Yes. At that time, it was 2008 when I graduated and got my master's degree because I graduated years before that just with a bachelor's, but my master's degree came several years later because I
Mhm.
thought I'm up against a lot of teachers in California. Maybe,
Mhm.
perhaps, if I get my master's, I will have a little flashier resume, so to speak.
Right.
And it was just
Right.
that thought, like I'm in this rat race, I'm in this competition with so many other people that are tenured, they are secured, and
Mhm.
then against all the other people. But 2008, the financial climate changed. And so now
Mhm.
I'm up against all these other teachers, and the one teaching job I was offered at that time was very far away. So I
Right.
declined that position. Later, I did become a teacher in a different format. It was
Mm.
at preschool and kindergarten in Malibu, and I was a co-teacher. And that
Mhm.
was my first footing into education, not as a student teacher, but as a real teacher. And then later
Yes.
I did have my own classroom, kindergarten through 5th grade. I was a computer teacher. So I saw
Mm.
17 classes, over 430 students visited my class weekly. Um, and and then I subbed after that while maintaining a mortgage position, and I was working like 70 plus hours a week. So when
Mm.
I talk about the go, 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 I'm not joking.
Yeah.
I was in over my head doing something to make money and then doing something that
Mhm.
I loved. And it was a
Mhm.
simultaneous thing happening where I don't know how I had the energy. I was sick all the time. I had no time for self. And it was a great experience. I would never take any part of my life back in any job I've ever had or position I've ever had. It's all so fascinating to flash back to your life, isn't it? You know,
Mhm.
all the things that
Yes.
you've
Yes.
done and the places you've been, and all the growth that's come from it. And I always like to look at it like, who was I being in those moments?
Mhm.
Because there's a lot of things I would say or things I did, um, that don't resonate with me anymore at all.
Right. Right. And it's like in that moment, whenever, you think back to those times where you in different places that you worked in different roles. I'm doing the same kind of now. I feel like I know, and I want to know if you agree. I know everything was meant to happen for a reason. I was supposed to learn what I was supposed to learn and then move on.
Yes.
But it's just fascinating to me. It's like, I want to know from you, like, when did you know? You said you were hearing that voice in the back of your head.
Mhm.
This is fine. It's working. We're good at this, but we can definitely do better. There's always something, to learn from this and move on. When did you know that coaching was where you wanted to go?
Uh, Interestingly enough, I never knew what coaching was. You know,
Mm.
obviously I've heard of like therapy and genuinely,
Mhm.
and I was actually interested in going into psychology earlier as an early adult. young adult. And then I heard about coaching about a dozen years ago for the first time. Health coaching,
Mhm.
wellness coaching, life coaching, all these kinds of coaches. And I think the only coach I heard of was a fitness coach, right?
Mhm.
It's probably the
Yep.
most prominent,
Yep.
popular one.
Yep.
And then I was like, wait, there's other types of coaching. That's so interesting. Okay. And then when I looked into it, and then I saw this institute that, well, I looked at a few of them, and I was like, well, what is this about? And oh, I can get a certification from this. And then
Mhm.
again, it's like I revert back to the old part of me that it's like I need a degree, I need a certification to become this thing. Where
Mhm.
now I have a different outlook on life where we don't need degrees and certifications necessarily to become who we're
Mhm.
meant to be, or
Mhm.
to show that we have any type of authority or have enough wherewithal, intellect, experience to be in this role.
Mhm.
Like we're thrown into motherhood, right? We
Yeah.
didn't get a
Do we know what that's about before we do it? No. No.
so
Right. Yeah.
we didn't maybe
It's
we
on the job training. No?
it is. I mean, it's
Uh-uh.
kind of funny.
Mhm.
It just strikes a chord with
Yep.
me because it's like
Mhm.
all these jobs that we train for so hard. It's like training for a marathon, and then you don't just like one day wake up and do a marathon. It's
No.
like my kid did something so fast the other day. No, it wasn't my kid. It was my dad. Same thing,
Yeah.
different body, but he's an older gentleman now, so it's
Mhm.
kind of they have the same faculties sometimes, but he's not well, and
Mm.
he got up from his chair, which he's mostly in, and he just was doing these exercises that he's doing, and he did them really fast. And I said, "Dad, you can't
Mm.
just get up and do like you have to ease into this thing." So that's like
Mhm.
life, just us easing
Yeah.
into it. And with the coaching, like I say, it was about a dozen years ago. And I got my certification as quick as I could because I think it was like you could get it in a year, but if you really wanted to, you could complete it in 6 months. Well, I did the six
Mm.
months because
Mhm.
that's how serious I was at working for myself, getting into a new gig, doing a new thing for myself. And so, yes, it was a certification and it's like another notch on your belt. It's another
Mhm.
something to put on your resume. But the interesting thing is that I don't have a resume anymore because I'm
Mm.
not being hired by other people other than my clients.
Right.
We
Right.
just have a conversation. They check me out, and
Mhm.
then they learn quickly that I know what I'm talking about because I've been doing this and I have all that experience, the life
Yeah.
experience to back everything that I'm doing up. And I also do it myself. So when the
Mhm.
coaching hit, it really struck a chord and sparked interest in me because I said, I'm already doing all this stuff.
Mhm.
Everything that I can help others with and support them through, I do this ritualistically myself every day for years. This is who I am. So why can I not be someone that can do this? And then I just dove in head first. And I haven't looked back and I've never questioned it. And it's like here we are and it feels great while
Yeah.
being a mother and while having clients remotely. And I mean I had in person in the beginning and then now it's definitely been remotely. I remember nursing and breastfeeding my baby in 2019 while I had
Mhm.
clients, not on video, um,
Right.
but, on mute while I'm nursing and I have baby on my chest and I have,
Yeah.
the phone on the table on speaker on mute
Mhm.
while they're talking and pen in hand taking notes with the other hand
Mhm.
and then pressing unmute when I was going to speak. And I had many sessions that way because when you want to get something done, you find a way.
Mhm. Now, I would say, Samantha, probably part of it, I'm listening to all of your background, and I'm wondering about the listeners out there and the viewers on YouTube. If they want to start a coaching business or if they want to seek out coaching services, I mean, you have that background in tech because you're a technology teacher, and you also have that drive of helping others, and you have that purpose. But it doesn't mean if you're out there listening or watching that you can't do it too. It's just a
Correct.
process of figuring out what you want to do and then learning on the job training. Like we said, parenting doesn't come with a manual. You figure it out
Yes.
as you go. So you could either check the show notes for more information on how to get in touch with Samantha for coaching services, or listen further in the conversation about ways that she and I have both persevered through changes in our lives to figure out what we needed to do next. I think it's just fascinating that you were a teacher, you were in the classroom, and you shifted because you had a different calling, but it was for
Yeah.
your personal growth.
Yeah. No, I still
Yeah.
tell you honestly, my last day of teaching, I cried. I
Mm,
looked around and I knew that that was going to be my very last day teaching children at that capacity in a classroom,
mm-hmm.
hired by a school. I knew
Yeah.
that was going to be it for me. I knew it. And I didn't even know if I wanted to have children myself at that time. I was on the fence, but I did know wholeheartedly that I loved teaching.
Mm-hmm.
And it was such a profound, moving experience. I'm so honored that I got to be a part of so many students' lives and have the camaraderie with the teachers and the faculty and the staff and at various schools, because I worked in several schools at the end of it all. It ended up being several schools, but and I got to see it in different ways too, because I was a hired teacher at a couple different schools and then I was a sub. So I got to
Mm-hmm.
slide right in
You
to
got
other
to see
people.
it all.
Yeah, so I got
Yes.
a little variety. It was like the
Yeah.
Samantha variety show, as far as background goes. But yeah, not to take away from anybody that would ever look into, and not even just coaching, just anybody that's looking to
Mm-hmm.
slide into a different career or
Mm-hmm.
any type of change. It's all possible. It's just you have to check in with, I would say personally, you have to check in with your higher self. Not
Right.
just because ego can get in the way a lot. It did in my life. It does in all
Mm-hmm.
our lives. There's no escape.
Mm-hmm.
But
Sure.
when we more purposefully and intentionally check in with ourselves and kind of almost say, I mean, you really could say, what would my higher self say? What would my higher self want me to do? And
Mm-hmm.
when you reach a different feeling with it and a different energy in your thinking around it, that may very well give you the answer whether it's right for you or not.
Mm-hmm.
I mean,
Do you
you,
find that things come more effortlessly to you when you're in a position where you have alignment?
yes, but
Mm-hmm.
it's a interesting thing because um I mentioned money earlier where, it
Mm-hmm.
didn't really play a huge role in my life, but that's also part lie because at some junctures in my life, of course, it meant something to me. If I was offered a raise or if I was offered a higher position in a company, of course that made me happy as it
Yeah.
would with anyone.
Sure.
But it's just that wasn't the goal. I never went into a position
Mm-hmm.
thinking, well, I can make $70,000 a year at this job, so I'm going to go for it. That's not the
Right.
way my priority was. Obviously with teaching,
Yeah.
because I mean,
Yeah. And we don't do that for money. Nobody in teaching does that for money. We all know. We
correct,
understand.
100%. So, but at the end of the day, yes, you can absolutely do anything you want to do. But I would say to be very careful. Is it something you want to do? Is it something
Mm-hmm.
society tells you to do? If you're younger, is it something that your parents are telling you to do? Or you have all doctors in the family, so you better go to med school.
Mm-hmm.
So And I'm very big on self expression through personal freedom
Mm-hmm.
and understanding the difference between the culture around us. And that literally could mean your personal family and friends and, people around you personally, and then also people you don't know, just society and culture, and what we are programmed to think about ourselves. We have to be very careful walking the fine line between where we're supposed to really be for ourselves inherently as our soul suggests
Mm-hmm.
and would love us to align with, or going with what everyone else is doing. So it's
Yeah.
that hive mind mentality where even me, I mean, I'm someone that's very malleable. I can adjust to different environments and different settings and get along with most people. That being said, did I need to do all the things that I did? Did I need to stay as long as I did in certain places? Did I need to go certain directions I went? I mean, the answer is probably no on a few of those. It was just a choice. But
Mm-hmm.
is it my choice, or is it was it derived by someone else in the back of my mind
Mm.
telling me that's what I should do? So are we at the end of the day, are we listening to our own inner voice, or are we listening to the voice of others? That's very, very,
Yeah.
very important in making decisions.
Mm-hmm. True. Yeah. Because, I definitely have that voice in the back of my head. Do I make my choices based on my family and providing for my family, but also, and, and also making myself happy. And so it's always been kind of a fine line. And I would say I've been in education for 27 years. And I don't know about you, but I think back to the beginning of my career. And I would say all the time, I never wanted to be a teacher. I would tell my family, I don't want to go into teaching. So that early young self knew all along that that wasn't going to be my end game. But I think it was good for me for a while because I learned how to work with other people. I learned leadership skills. I learned all kinds of things that I needed to do in another way later in life. I think back now, I mean, I wanted to be in the FBI. I wanted to go to school. I was in poli sci and criminal justice. I wanted to be the next, Silence of the Lambs, Jodie Foster. I wanted to be a forensic
Mm.
pathologist or, in the FBI in some way. Of course, that was from Hollywood's perspective. But
Yes.
I mean, I've even, been thinking about that now. Like, there might be some jobs out there now where I could utilize my skills in the FBI, and you just never know. Dreams, it's like I think your life, your who you were at 12 and 13 and who you wanted to be. And then later in life, when you start going to school and you figure out what you are going to study and what you want to do, I mean, they say it can change up to at least 7 times. I think that's the average for most
Mhm.
people.
Mhm.
You're going to change your career. It's very rare when you don't. And I know there's a lot of people out there who are veteran classroom teachers, and that's what you wanted to do from, the time you were walking and talking, and you can't imagine yourself in another role. But I think like you, Samantha, I was somebody who was going to change often enough. And I was in education for so long, but I did different things in education. I can't sit still very long. I need to leave places better than I find them, but then I have to move on. And so I just find it fascinating that while you were juggling all these changes, along comes parenthood.
Yes.
And then you looked into, and you've had a background in education, but you were looking at homeschool for your daughter. Can you talk a little bit about that?
Yes, of course. Thank you. So, but first, can I just say FBI? Wow. Okay.
Hmm. Yeah. My husband, law enforcement retired, is like, no, I don't think so.
Whoa.
I
Okay.
think I would
Well,
have been cute.
the comment, yes, I could see you with a badge.
Yeah, absolutely.
Thank you for sharing that, though. I see. I like that
Hmm.
because it takes it. It's like you don't really know a person until you actually
Hmm.
have a conversation, and that's why I love doing podcasts because you
Hmm.
find out it's like an onion just unraveling. You find out so much
Yeah,
about a person in these conversations
sure.
I really love it. So anyway,
Yeah.
but taking it back to homeschool.
Yep.
So the homeschooling, it's very funny. I'll start with this. A million people have asked me, okay, you are a teacher. Why would you not teach your
Mhm.
own child?
Right.
Almost everyone I know has asked me this. And it's always the same answer. It's because I don't want to.
Mhm.
Here's the thing
Yeah.
about I don't want to. It's a statement that we all need to subscribe ourselves to more often. We do not
Mhm.
need to people please so much. We do not need
Right.
to, do things because whatever reason. We don't even need to give reason very much anymore. I mean, really,
Mhm.
as long as you know you're doing something for the greater good, for your greater good for yourself,
Mhm.
personally, for everyone, it doesn't matter. Anyway, so for me,
Mhm.
I knew that I have one kid. I have one shot. This isn't going to become an Eminem song, but
It could.
it could. We could go into this. You could insert the Eminem song here. You only have one shot.
Uh-huh.
Do not make your chance
Cue
to
it.
play. I
Yep.
won't do it.
That's right.
But we need to go with in our heart what we know. And my husband and I, thankfully, we always from the get-go agreed very strongly we are going to homeschool our child for a multitude of reasons. But
Mhm.
and funny, I know, because a lot of people are like, well, you came from education, you worked in public schools and charters and privates, why would you not? Uh, but
Mhm.
we made the choice. We felt very firm in our decision, and thankfully, we were on the same page because I know a lot of people out there are not on the same page,
Mhm.
and
Yeah.
I know that must be very hard. So I empathize with that. However, for me personally, we said this is what we're going to do, and I painstakingly researched for 2 years. Where's my kid going to go? That she's going to be safe, that she's going to learn a brilliant education. She's going to learn from pedagogies that I believe in, that
Mhm.
it's going to be more of a natural setting where maybe she could even be barefoot sometimes. Maybe there's going to be nature incorporated. Maybe it's going to be more of like a farmstead situation where there's planting and watching growth and field trips where there's animals involved and, kind of
Mhm.
this natural approach to education where it's not where she's learning the memorization of things, but where she's literally integrating these beautiful lessons that are life lessons that she can take away, not like, and I of course I respect and appreciate my own personal education, but it's so different than what she's getting now. I was
Mm.
not this wise or intellectual at 6 years old. Everyone who's ever met her says, wow, what are you doing with her? And it's not me.
Mm.
This isn't a pat on the back for me. I just painstakingly went through the motions to find what I found, but and that doesn't mean it's going to be like that for anyone else. That was just my journey. I live in California, and depending the pocket that you live in, it's not very easy. There's certain counties out here that are full-fledged, like on every corner you can find a pod. And that's sprinkled throughout the country. They're like that. I am a part of many Facebook groups for years for homeschooling. That was another avenue I went to. I had so many conversations with people I don't know in this state, all across the country, just trying to see what other people are doing, what other parents are experiencing, and taking all that in this mixed pot and trying to figure out what I'm going to do for myself. And in that, I found that there's so much creativity to homeschooling that
Mhm.
we're not trying to get away from a system. It's just more of a creation of taking all the beauty, taking what children really need, having a space where they can actually have the ability to be one of a few instead of one in so many, because I know
Mhm.
you can attest to this very well,
Yeah.
looking around a classroom and it's like, you know, 25, 30, 40 people in one classroom.
Mhm.
And I just
Mhm.
had this conversation the other day with my child because we were talking about homeschool, and she's only 6, so she's only going to understand. She doesn't have the experience of even walking a public school campus, so she doesn't even know what
Mhm.
that looks like at all. And
Right.
she asks me sometimes questions about my prior teaching experience, and then we talk about homeschool. And I've said to her recently, I said, the difference is that, in homeschool, you can be a teacher with a little gaggle of ducklings and several children where everybody gets a lot of attention. You get your questions answered. If you are excited to learn more about a subject at hand, the teacher doesn't have to abide by a specific timeline for
Mhm.
standardized testing.
Mhm.
They can simply just say, okay, we're going to extend this lesson because the children are interested in this. And they
Mhm.
kind of teeter totter in their structure, but sometimes something isn't, it's not a curiosity around it. So they backtrack a little bit, maybe don't spend as many days. And then sometimes they spend more. So
Mhm.
there is structure. If you have the right teacher, you have the right setting, which is great because children do need
Yeah.
structure. So I'm not against rules or
Mhm.
anything or structure, but it looks different. It's
Mhm.
like my kid is thriving instead of being 1 in 30 or 40 where she has to raise her hand to pee. If she's hurt, if she had a rough morning, her teacher can't coddle her a little bit and have a discussion because she has no time because she has all these other kids to get to. The
Yeah.
teacher's able to pay attention to the kids want to pay attention to the teacher, and it's just such a different environment. It invites more curiosity, more real life situation, and I couldn't be happier with what we're doing. Also, because the teacher that we found is like a cross between, I say this all the time, I say it to her face. She's a cross between Little House on the Prairie and like a fairy because
Mm.
she is magic. Just like I got so lucky. Man, I got so,
Mm.
but it's with community and the parenting, and it's out there. And what's so cool is that more and more homeschooling is more prevalent. It's so many people are pulling their kids out of schools to just say, I'm going to unschool, meaning I'm going to take the
Mhm.
best of school, what is
Mhm.
already there for us. And then I'm
Mhm.
also going to create something beautiful and have those coexist together. And we're going to build community. And it's such a strong, it's like, it's just such a glorious situation to be in. And then also people ask, are you always going to homeschool? And my answer with no qualms about it is absolutely
Mm.
100%.
Yeah. And I don't know about in California, but in my state of Tennessee right now, currently, you can, and as a former principal just last year, you can have kids who are homeschooled play for sports or get involved with
Yes,
different school activities that are public and provided by public education. So it's not like it's this or that. You could,
exactly.
as a parent, do a blended experience if you wanted to too. So there's flexibility.
Yes, and yes, thank you for bringing that up. That's very true.
Mhm.
It's not just a this or that.
Yeah.
And it also depends how you want it to be, what your home life is. I
Mhm.
know you're living on some land. You have a different
Mhm.
situation. Every family has a different situation. So the cool thing about this is that it can be structured based on your own personal family's needs. And
Sure.
listen, I have a school that I can walk to in 45 seconds. And I
Mhm.
chose to just not go that route. So It really just depends what your family's looking for, what the needs are, what the needs are of the children specifically too,
Mhm.
because there's varied learners, as I learned very quickly as a teacher. And I know you
Mhm.
experienced way more than I did. Every child has different needs. Some kids do need to be coddled. Some, I'm using this word again, but for lack of a better word or a different word, just some people need more attention. And so to be,
Mhm.
just one and you're like a number at a deli, like next customer,
Yeah.
it's like, you're not, there's no human experience in it. You're in a line. I mean, don't you remember? I know you've
Mhm.
seen it visually because you experienced it as an adult, but go back to when you were a child. Do you remember
Mhm.
being in a line
Mhm.
and,
Yeah.
and then what that felt like? And, and that's why I said ducklings before, because in
Mhm.
homeschool, it's more, they all kind of scatter about and they just sit on a pillow in my daughter's experience currently. Whereas instead, in the other schooling, it's different. The lights are different. They're sitting at a desk. I had a terrible time sitting still. And I talked to
Mhm.
my daughter about this and I said, there's so many different ways to learn. And I approached it that
Yeah.
way because I don't
Yeah.
want to speak poorly of the school system, public schools, charter schools, and especially because I have massive respect for educators all across the board. I know that the majority of the teachers out there are giving their hearts like so beyond words that
Mhm.
it's such a soulful profession for those that
Yes.
tap into it. I know there's a lot of teachers out there too that are like, "Get me out of here. I can't take this job." So there's both, which we could say
Yeah,
for any
sure.
profession. But when the educators are in it for the heart, and they see it in that light and they teach it in that way, homeschool or not, listen, there's probably not so great homeschooling teachers out there either. So there's good and bad everywhere. But the
Mhm.
point at the end of the day is what is right for you, for your family, for your child, what's safe, what rings true, what resonates. And I'm so grateful that there is a choice, that there is a variance for us to partake in, and that we don't have to just place our kids somewhere necessarily where we don't have so much of a say
Mhm.
in the experience I'm in personally. I do have somewhat of a say in some things a little bit differently where I might not have a say so much. I'm also missing out on other things. I'm not a PTA mom, I'm not but I've also
Yeah.
learned, like you said, the sports, there's all kinds of recreational things that children
Mhm.
can still partake in a homeschool way. There are charters out there where you can sign up and apply. And if you are accepted, you can get homeschool charter funding that strictly
Mm.
goes towards, um, there's classes, you could, if your karate studio, let's say, takes these charter funds, then
Mhm.
you don't have to pay for your karate. Maybe then,
Yeah.
the charter funds pay for karate. So these are things to look into for anyone that's interested or that's homeschooling and maybe doesn't know about this.
Mhm.
And depending on your state, there's many different charters, to look into and see what one you would fit in to apply toward, or you can apply to a few and see, hopefully you're accepted to one of them.
Right.
But it's great. So you're not alone. There's community, there's information out there than ever before.
That's good. That's good. Do you have any, and I can always include it in the show notes if you have, if there were any listeners or viewers out there that wanted to know more about homeschooling, depending on their state, are there any national websites that would be helpful for parents? Like if they're starting out, like maybe they have a student who's going to be a school age student soon, a child
Uh,
who, or
I
maybe a
don't
child who doesn't fit with a traditional school setting that,
correct.
they're thinking maybe my older one went through public school, but maybe my next one coming up is probably not going to be a good fit.
And that happens a lot. I see that
Mm.
happen a lot. I know people
Yeah.
that's happened to, and I hear about it, even people I don't know. I see it, and I
Mhm.
know personally, where the parents have changed their mind, and that's a very good thing to do. We don't always have to
Mhm.
be sticklers in a pigeonholed position on things. I've changed my mind in religion, I've changed my mind on politics, I've changed my mind on education. I You can change your mind. It's okay.
Yeah. Yeah.
Sometimes when we grow ourselves personally, we start to align with different things. Other things fall off, and that's our old belief system. And then we
Mhm.
introduce ourselves to new ways and we go, I would never think I would do this ever in a million years.
Right.
And look where I am,
Yes.
right?
Yes.
So that's a
Yes.
very cool thing because that's growth. That's just,
Mhm.
and that is, you spoke about alignment earlier. That is aligning yourself with the
Mhm.
reality around you, with your external world. That's very important to do because, again, we don't want to do things for other people. To answer your question,
Right.
I don't know
Mhm.
any national
Okay.
websites. I would suggest going state because
Mhm.
that will have your specific structured set of rules that are applicable to you. And also going on, if you're on social media, Facebook groups were very, very
Mhm.
helpful to me. There are general homeschooling groups that you can be accepted into, and then you can just kind of see across the board what people do. That's kind of interesting to learn anyway. But if
Mhm.
you're really seriously looking at something for yourself and your family, I would suggest your state and even your county,
Mhm. That's
because
a good
those will
point.
be
Local.
very different depending on, because listen, I'm in Los Angeles County. Orange County is very different than
Mhm.
Los Angeles County. Also, certain charters, if you're looking to get funds or for there's different things you can look into, but there are different charters for different counties as well as
Okay.
state. So it really is far down detailed and trickled in as you can get, the better.
Okay. So grassroots,
Yes.
get to the local Facebook pages and groups and then just do your research.
Yeah, and also a side note, it's really good to do that anyway because you
Mhm.
don't want to feel alone in your experience. Especially for newer parents of younger children where you haven't really built community so much yet. Listen, I had
Mhm.
uh, a lot. I mean, most of the people I knew, parents, were all going public. My daughter's
Mm.
first school, it was like a play school, the teacher coined it as, and all the kids that she was friends with, all her
Mhm.
classmates, they were all going to public. She was the only
Mm.
one going to homeschool. So any parents I made friends with, of course you could still be friends with people, but
Yeah.
it's like you want to find your people because
Mhm.
the topics are different, the conversations are
Mhm.
different, the needs are different perhaps.
Right.
It is really important you build a community for yourself because there's a lot to learn. I'm still learning a lot.
Mhm.
So it's very helpful to have even just one other person that you can align with and get some information from or bounce ideas off of. And you never know, you might start a pod together.
Yeah, that's true. So you can start that up too, because I know very
Yes.
little about homeschooling. I've really only been on the public school side of
Yes.
supporting families who want services. But so you can start up your own pod
Yep.
and have a homeschool experience.
Yep. If you find or know parents that you trust, you
Mm-hmm.
can hire a teacher or one of the parents can be the teacher. And
Mm-hmm.
at some point, at some age, I don't know, it's age 6 here in California. I don't know if that's across the board for the country. Don't know. So
Mm-hmm.
I'm
Yeah.
don't have that information.
Yeah.
But at some age, there is um a timeline where you have to go by, you have to announce, you have to fill out an
Mm-hmm.
affidavit, you have to fill out a simple form and state that you're homeschooling. But this
Yes.
isn't to scare anyone. This is like, it's just part of what you need to
Mm-hmm.
do.
Yeah.
Like this is what
Mm-hmm.
I'm doing with my child. Or even if you take your child out of public school, you don't need to give them explanation. You need to, I think,
Yeah.
give them a written email. Maybe
You
you
just have
could
to put it in writing. Yeah.
put it in writing.
Mhm.
So this is not tricky. It's not hard. It's only challenging in that you need to spend some time to do research to see where you want to go with it, what you want it to
Mhm.
be for yourself, and to just kind of learn the rules as it applies. But it's all possible, it's realistic,
Mhm.
and it can be practical as well. So, it's good to for parents to know that they have choices in their decision making process. How do I want my child to be educated in this world? Because this world is changing. It changed with the
Mhm.
pandemic. A lot of kids
Mhm.
had to do remote learning. A lot of
Yeah.
kids came out of it different with the way that they learned socially. Um, that was very
Yeah.
unfortunate.
And this kindergarten cohort coming into school now is the group that went through the pandemic, first. So they
Yeah.
were that was their first year. So that's all they've known is being at home.
Yeah. But you know how we all are, how we can change. I was
Mhm.
pulled out of school. My parents moved from one city to another, and I was pulled out of a school when I was 13. And that's a very big age to be making a move, to be going to a new
Yeah.
school, and to be making entirely new friends. But
Yeah,
I
cuz
did it.
that's your center of your world when you're 13.
Yes. So that hormonal time, and the school was different,
Mm.
very different, but I was okay. So kids are
Mhm.
resilient, and parents can be
Yeah.
resilient too. So whatever changes they
Mhm.
make, maybe something that they've known their whole life, it's okay to make a change and start something new.
Mhm.
I was probably a little scared in the beginning, only because for me personally, I was going through the pandemic, had my first child ever, was going through a dark night of the soul, was losing my mind because I was at home every day with very little support, and researching what in the world am I doing with my child for education as a former teacher
Yeah.
saying this. So
Yeah.
if I can do it, anyone can do it. Whether you decide public school is
Yeah.
right for you or not, it's your choice.
Mhm.
Any type of education, of course, all your choice. But good to know, look at, all your options and see what sparks, and you're like, "Oh, this is it. This is the way I'm going. This is the route for
Mhm.
me."
Yeah, and I like that you say, you can always change your mind. So you can give yourself that choice too. You
Yeah,
can
it's
always
good to
reserve judgment and you can always change your mind.
Yeah, we judge ourselves and we judge what other people do so much, and it's unfortunate because my life is not yours, your life is not mine. We can have beautiful similarities, and then we can have things we do differently, and we shouldn't look down on others for their ways of being or their ways of learning. And I always say this, maybe too often. I always say, on our own time, in our own way,
Mhm. Mhm.
on our own pace. And
Yeah.
so my growth is going to look different than someone else's growth. There's no, forward or behind or whatever. It's just, I
Right.
am where I am. You are where you are.
Mhm.
Somebody, 60 could be more fit than someone at 20. It's
Yeah.
everyone's,
Absolutely. We're
everyone's
all at
journey.
different places
Yeah.
and it's okay.
Yeah. And
Mhm.
it is okay. So
Yep.
I like to say that, people should give themselves more grace in
Mhm.
what they're doing, and where they're going and who they're being, and let everything go from the past, and allow ourselves to just be okay with whatever happened. Wherever we are is where we are, and not have too much anxiety about the future either, because
Mhm.
that is not helpful for anyone.
No, and I know there's a lot of people going through that right now where they're questioning life choices,
Yeah.
decisions about what profession they've decided to be in you know, they're just making changes and maybe, I'm getting ready hopefully to be moving here soon. We're looking at maybe relocating. But that's a daunting task too, of like
Well,
packing and moving and all those things. But those are life changes, whether your child is going to a different school or if you're moving on to a different profession or you have some other life change going on. But I also want to check in with you a little bit because you, like me, you started out, and I'm going to shift conversation a little bit here,
sure.
but you'll see where I'm going with it. We both started out in organized religion growing up and had all of that foundation. Spirituality was probably a thing in your house, but it looked different than mine. And I had this organized way of like we were going to church on a certain day, we're doing certain things a certain way. And if anybody knows the Catholic Church, it's very regimented. But and I actually went to Catholic school. So the whole time I was hearing you talk about your experience and thinking about homeschooling, I was like, that would have been a different experience if I had grown up in that environment versus Catholic school. But, it's just interesting that I chose to be in public school as my profession. But with spirituality and your background, had that had any play into how you coach and kind of your calling to coaching? I mean, talk a little bit about that if you don't mind.
Of course, I don't mind at all. I love that you're asking this question because it's a very integral facet to the conversation, especially being that homeschool um, has many different religious centers or not. So
Mhm.
there are a lot in California, a lot of Christian based. I don't, you know what? To be honest, I don't know about Catholic. I haven't
Mm.
heard Catholic. Don't quote me on anything because they probably exist. So this isn't like a bias or anything.
Yeah,
I
no.
just haven't heard of it. I'm sure it's out there. But more prominently, I've heard of Christian focused homeschooling
Mhm.
that is 100% out there and very easier to find
Mm.
than like non-religious type homeschool. But there are both.
Mhm.
And I grew up Jewish. Both my parents are
Mhm.
Jewish. I did not grow up I grew up reform. So that's like
Mhm.
the base level, not as serious about it, not as conservative. So
Mhm.
in Reform Judaism, there was so much about it I personally loved because I loved the cantor is what you call the singer in the temple,
Mhm.
standing up there with the rabbi's speaking and the cantor's singing. And I got the chills because looking at the stained glass and being in
Mm.
this house of respect, house of God, there was just something about it. Even as a child, I didn't know anything about anything. You know what you're told, right? It's stories, and
Right.
some of it you're like, wow, that's pretty cool. And then some of it you're like, huh? Did that
Yeah.
happen? I don't know. I wasn't
Right.
there. Your childlike mind going through all
Yeah.
these things. Like, I don't know. I'm being told this. Do I believe this? I don't know. But there were so many
All
beautiful
the things.
takeaways, all the things. There were so many beautiful takeaways, and I always tapped into the more spiritual side of anything. And I've been to churches too,
Mhm.
just because I'm Jewish. I traveled the country. I've been to churches all over the country. Always for me, something about the stained glass and the light shining through. And I always just loved it more when people were talking about something more spiritual where we all feel connected and it's not a moment of like authority, an authoritative thing
Mhm.
where there was a lesson involved.
Mhm.
That was kind of what I resonated with. But my personal experience aside, uh, one more thing. The first school I ever went to, a preschool. My mom put me in a church, preschool,
Mm.
preschool at a church.
Mhm.
So, I
Yeah.
mean, anything is possible. There's all kinds of variations in homeschooling.
Mhm.
Honestly, I looked at homeschools for my child before we were settled into something that were Christian based.
Mm.
And quite a few. I mean, I literally was very serious about it. I had conversations with principals. I was
Mhm.
that had no barring on her education. To me, it was again about the safety, the educational piece, what kind of pedagogies, educational styles are we learning here? Is it Waldorf, Montessori? What is
Mhm.
it that they tack onto? Or is it, a multitude of things? Those were the important factors to me. But
Right.
they are out there. And I, as an open person first,
Mhm.
I I just decided that why would I limit myself to religious, or religion rather, being brought into the education, because the kids are at a young age. They're not going to talk about
Yeah.
certain things
Yeah.
that we
Right.
don't say certain words as parents. We don't say certain things
Mhm.
as parents or educators. So that's not going to translate. It's going to be more of a
Mhm.
soft landing pad on some of those
Yeah.
situations that would arise. But I have no problem with that. I didn't, to me, I didn't
Mhm.
care. Are we saying the Pledge of Allegiance? Are we not saying I don't that had no I was very impartial to any of that type of stuff. It was the
Mhm.
sandwich in between. What are we learning here? And okay, bringing my kid to this place that I'm going to drop off.
Right.
That's what
Right.
matters if you're going to drop your kid
Yeah.
off. And there's a lot of people out there that they do it in the home. One of my closest friends hired a teacher, made a classroom in her home, has
Mhm.
other kids come to her home,
Mhm.
and her kids are taught in the home, and they shut the door, and then they have a playtime outside in the backyard.
Mhm.
So there's all kinds of ways to do it.
Yeah.
Religion, no religion. For me, I incorporate more of a spirituality into my life. I like to take pieces of all the varied religions and what
Mhm.
resonates with me and then make it my own. But at the end of the day, nature is my religion, and because we came from nature. And the
Mhm.
very first school that my daughter ever partook? Why does this word sound weird to me right now?
I
Was
know,
ever
right?
involved with was an online school, because it was during the pandemic. She was 1.5. I needed something outside of myself. So it was a Montessori school, a
Mhm.
teacher in Atlanta, 6 kids, one in Canada, others in various states. And we were looking at a screen. I know, not great for a 1.5-year-old, but this is what I did, sprinkled throughout the week. And she did fun things. And one of the things was that the teacher said that I loved, that we are all a part of nature. And it
Mhm.
was one of the first things that my daughter really ever learned. And we still say it
Mm.
to this day. She gets scared of a bug outside. I'm like, it's a part of nature.
That's right.
So
Yeah.
that's what's important to me, and then, the
Mhm.
structures based around that, of course, but
Yeah.
to never have fear about any of this kind of stuff, because the beauty in it is that we get to create. So even though
Mhm.
there's this very set, structured environment in public and charter schools or even private schools, that doesn't mean that those can't change over time, to the betterment of society and how parents want it to go,
Mhm.
or that homeschool shouldn't be looked at, even if you're scared to look at it, because the creation behind it of what it can be for us, it should be more exciting. We should look towards the excitement of what it can be and what it is, rather than the fear of
Mm.
what we think it is.
Mhm.
There's always something to be said for our curiosity, that things don't always have to feel like what they seem to be. We can we can move walls a little bit.
Yes. And I think so much of what you've shared today is resonating with me. I hope it's resonating with our listeners and viewers out there. Beyond the big ideas of organized religion and homeschool versus public school versus charter school, whatever, you listener, viewer believe, whatever aligns with your values. I think that I'm hoping that you could take something away from this conversation because I think Samantha has shared her thinking through starting out in education
Mhm.
and going into other spaces, going through parenting and exploring the homeschool landscape and kind of how she's navigated that through, different angles and lenses. And I think it's fascinating. But, I'm coming from a background where my dad was Methodist, which is a Christian sect, but he had had so much religion growing up with a Methodist minister as a grandfather and many grandfathers previous that he didn't want to do anything organized when we grew up. And he was a parent. My mom wanted me in Catholic school, and the only reason I was allowed to go to Catholic school was because they did the pledge. So I think it's just interesting. You're going to come to your decisions as a parent or an educator or as a student in whatever resonates with you. And
Yeah.
like you said, it's okay to say, that's not for me. And like, no, we've heard this. No is a sentence. So as long as you know what you want and you know what you don't want, I think you're going to navigate those decisions as you see fit. So,
Yes, absolutely.
yeah, I really appreciate this time. I hate that I have to let you go soon. Is there anything else that you want to share with the listeners and viewers before I let you go?
I think I've said a lot here, as you and I have said to each other. We could probably go
Mm-hmm.
on and on and on.
Mm-hmm.
Happy to have another conversation if you would like down the road on a specific topic of
Yeah.
parenting or school, as an educator or anything like that. But thank you for having me on, firstly,
Mhm.
and I appreciate this conversation. It's such an important space to have discussion around. Parents often feel lost and confused and disconnected. And all
Mhm.
it takes is one other person. You don't need like 50 moms, in a wine club or a book club or whatever, right?
Right. No.
But we do need people. And
Mhm.
even if it's one person, um, and so then that's what I do in my coaching too. A lot of moms have come to me because they feel disconnected and they feel alone in so much. And I know what that's like because I was very alone in the beginning of my parenting, and having a job and a new job too. So, but we're never alone. There's
Mhm.
always something to help us. There's always someone to help us go through the waters of all of this. We don't have to swim through alone. This has been really eye-opening for me
Mhm.
too to hear what you've shared because you are so experienced and my best friend
Mm.
is just a few years behind you. I think she's in her 24th year.
Mm.
Also principal and
Wow.
started as a teacher and then went into administration, has also gone into different areas like you.
Yeah.
And I'm so
Yeah.
proud of her. So it's really cool talking to you, who's just, flash forward a few years farther down the road, but just seeing it through your eyes and your perspective as like the top of the umbrella for all these
Mm.
people. You have such a wide view of experience through so many different sets of eyes because you got
Mhm.
so many different emotions coming through to you from staff side and then parent side and then
Yes.
child side. So that's such a massive undertaking. That's something to be so proud of. So that's very cool that you
Well,
did
thank
that.
you.
I'm so happy to get to know you and
Yeah.
have this time with you. Thank you so much.
Absolutely. And that's what it's all about. It's about community and building those relationships and connecting. So if you can do that in a parent space or like we're doing in a podcaster guest space, it's really about building those connections and you don't have to be alone in your journey. So I'm learning new things and I'm glad I got to know you too as well, Samantha. It's
Thank
great.
you. Yeah, we're always
Yeah,
learning,
that's
right?
right. Absolutely.
Never stop. Never stop.
No, never stop learning.
It's a
That's right. And
constant.
you can count on us because we'll probably come back together again. We'll stay in touch and we can always revisit and see how homeschooling's going for you
I would love that.
as you navigate that. Yeah, absolutely. And thank you again for being here. All right. I'm going to put all the information in the show notes of how to get in touch with Samantha if you want. to explore her coaching services, or if you have questions about homeschooling because you're in California and you want to know
Yep.
more.
Happy to help. Thank you,
Okay.
Kendra. You have a beautiful
Yeah.
day.
Yes, you too. All right. Take care.
You too.
All right. Thank you. Thank you again, Samantha, for being here and sharing your time and your light with our community. I know that our listeners are going to want to connect with you, so they can definitely check all that information out in the show notes. And while that's it for today's episode of the Go Slow to Go Fast Lifestyle Podcast, I want to say thank you to the listeners and the viewers out there, because we have all of the episodes for the Go Slow to Go Fast podcast are being uploaded onto YouTube in the next couple of days. We've got quite a few out there now. You can go check them out if you'd like to watch any of them again, or if you haven't watched them all or listened to all of them, you can do that anytime you want. But remember to take a moment today to honor your own journey toward alignment and authenticity. And if you love this episode, I hope that you'll share it with a friend or anybody who's needing a little dose of soulful inspiration and just a conscious conversation about education, because this is rounding out my 3-part series on education. I started out with Dr. Grissom, who has been a district level leader. She has worked in central office like me, still is. She's working in Florida right now. She's supporting schools at the central office level. And then we shifted into having a conversation with Dr. Lauer, who is a parent, a teacher, and also an author working with teenagers in his own home and also in schools. And so he has some insights. And if you haven't checked out that podcast, definitely check out the 2 backpack conversation that we had last week. And so this week, rounding out my conversation with Samantha, this is all about just that parent perspective, and coming from a former educator who also has decided to venture into homeschooling for her own child who's 6. And while she knew that she didn't want to be the teacher at home with her own child, she wanted to seek out an environment where her child would thrive, and that ended up being a homeschool environment with a pod. And I learned so much from our conversation today. I hope you did too. And I hope, again, that you'll share it with someone that you know that needs to hear a little more encouragement about making decisions either as a parent or an educator or a leader. So just remember, go slow, be intentional, and embrace the season you're in, because like we said today, everybody's at different points in their life, and we just need to give ourselves a little grace. And remember, the light in me honors the light in you. And as you head into the rest of your week, let your light shine through. Until next time, remember, go slow to go fast, and thanks for listening.